But we became really quick at making these instant decisions. Go off the first instinct, yes! And that's what you did.
Well, I kind of feel that part of that galvanized the two of us as we were trying to sort through this father-son relate. It's been a pleasure.
He's had enough.
But the
do you see how theatrical even that was?
Yeah. It's like no gesture wasted. But I feel like it made us work hard. No, sorry. I thought I recognized somebody in the back, but
Listen, alternate Peter?
yeah, no.
Okay.
But that having to make those decisions and getting those scripts so late, which I'm sure all worked on shows where you show up and the pages are there waiting for you. But I felt like it because we had to spend so much time talking about what had come between these two men and where they had been, so that when the pages came there was at least a foundation, because then you had to go through 7.5 pages over the next 14 hours. So it, as we scrambled, and I got to say, I feel like, and I'm not fishing for compliments, but I feel like I had not yet found that in the pilot Peter was not a fully constructed character. That there's some choices that I didn't make, and he wasn't as clear as he could be, and it was only through the father-son relationship over the course of those first 5 or 6 episodes that I think he actually became a character rather than just a person on a TV show. So, and I think it was part of the reason that happened, not that I'd like to repeat it, was because the scripts were so late and the pressure was so intense to figure it out. It forced us to really lock down that dynamic.
We would spend hours in our trailers or dressing rooms talking about how this father-son relationship could work, because JJ did want to create. That was one of the few things he did say. And it was something very close to our hearts, and we wanted to, Josh and I were really keen not to make mistakes, to come out with cliches, to play all of the hard moments in it, and to find the depth. And because we actually love each other as mates, don't we?
Yeah.
So we get on really well as people. So it was easy to go in that space and talk about those hard decisions, those cruel things that families do to each other, and how hard it is to win back trust, and those moments, those pearls of when you find a moment of love, and it's gone again. So we worked really hard off screen to find those, and it's been probably the greatest joy of doing Fringe, is that relationship that we've established.
Aww. Has there ever been something that you found out later in the game you wish you had known? Okay.
Yeah. I think the nicest way to answer that question is to say that television is organic by its very nature, because there's so much, particularly network TV, that you have to put on the screen in a year. So I feel like even a show like ours, which has such a very specific mythology, they're going by guideposts rather than, by the gospel. And so the show changes and it grows as it should, as you realize, holy shit, we have John Noble doing this amazing Walter performance. We need to really explore who that guy is. And so the show changes its course over the course, which is the nice way of saying, yeah, sometimes they undo a decision that makes you go, that was 6 months of my work, man.
We had to confront a situation, for example, we may finish an episode with us not talking to each other, really just not getting on well. Something really bad's happened in their trust relationship. Next episode, the beginning of it, we're doing an experiment together, laughing and carrying on. And you go, oh shit, how do we do this, Josh? Remember?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'd find all this subtext to put in underneath it to try and make it work for us at least. But that was fun.
It is fun, and I don't even know if it's for better or for worse. I think it's for better. Yeah. The nature of television, and if you as an actor can stay as engaged, and it is rare, I can count on one finger the amount of, actually maybe 2 people that I've had a working relationship like I have with you. But if you can stay as engaged by it, you can find ways to layer that stuff in. The difficulty is that when you don't have that closeness, or you just get overwhelmed by the volume of the work, those things that make our job so wonderful, informing those scenes, finding the richness in those beats, can get just papered over by time, boredom, exhaustion. and that's where you start to blend out, your performance and ultimately the show itself. You can see that moment in a TV show where the actors disconnect, where they go, I'm just tired. I don't want to do this anymore.
Say the words.
Yeah. And it happens to all of us. I've certainly, trust me, I have definitely had episodes of television put on the air that I am embarrassed to say that I sleepwalked through. Not on this show yet, but it happens. I don't think there's a human out there that can say that, they're capable of doing 137 days of 14-hour days perfectly.
As I'm sure you know, Fringe has worldwide
I apologize
fans.
for the sniffles.
I'm sure.
Sorry.
I'm sure you know Fringe has a huge worldwide audience. You've probably met many of your fans. We have a lot of questions from all over the world that I want to ask. First of all, John, I'm curious if you're aware of the Facebook groups, Give John Noble an Emmy for Walter Bishop, and every show. Another one I love is every show should have a Walter Bishop. And they love to quote, like, great Walter lines. Do you have a personal favorite?
Oh, golly. I'm aware of the websites because my manager was very excited by that. It sent me the link. And the favourite to say, the one for this year, I'm sure, was the one about her vagina.
The agenda, yeah. It's gotta be. That was a great line.
Just out of left field, Marta Hari and her vagina. Because it was such fun, and Walter was at full pace in full rage.
That's what was so great about it. It sort of blew right through, and then everybody goes, hold on, did he just say?
And we had Lance Reddick working in that scene, and of course Lance in the show never smiles. But every time in rehearsal we get him every time. And when I hit him with that one, he fell out in a take. It was just, what? Oh, yes, victory! We've made Lance smile.
Has there ever been a time where Walter said something when you were like, oh, I can't say this?
Oh, yes. Oh, back in season 1 when I was sensitive, I was doing a scene with Olivia and Astrid, and I said, oh, I'm getting an erection. Nothing to do with you, my dear. That was interesting. I just played it through like that's what you say to a girl. And she was half naked. Olivia was half naked. I'm getting an erection. Nothing to do with you, my dear. Oh, I need to urinate. That was. I did give that 5 minutes thought, I have to say. And the girls did not look comfortable.
They were not well pleased.
They were not well pleased.
We have a question from Maria in Buenos Aires. Wants to know which episode of season 3 was the most difficult to film physically or emotionally.
I think the finale.
Finale.
Yeah.
The finale, which hasn't gone to air yet, I think.
But you can tell us everything that happens if you like.
Because
As
we're
long
my
as we'll all
friends.
drink some Kool-Aid that we have just outside the doors.
Well, you do it because you had the huge physical demands.
There were big physical demands, and for the first time I got to play a little bit at playing not the regular version of myself, which was nice. But the combination, it was the last, as they're just about to go on the air, so sorry to do this to you, but the last 3 episodes are sort of one story. And it is, this has been a lot of, I mean, it's been the Olivia's year. And so Peter's involvement has been much more with her, obviously, this year, which has been, I think, to the detriment of the Bishop relationship a little bit because it hasn't had the chance and it hasn't gone through the amount of growth, I think, that it did in the first 2 seasons. But we catch up on it in the last 3 episodes. And it's actually, for those 2 guys, it is the focus of those episodes. And so the finale in particular has a lot of very heavy but wonderful stuff between both the Walternate that we love and the Walternate that we don't love nearly as much. And so there was a lot of emotional heavy lifting to go with all the running and jumping. If it turns out, I think the finale should be spectacular. If it is as good as they wrote it, if it comes off on screen, it should be excellent. And the ending is so shocking, in a good way, but so shocking that it will take the couple months between this episode and the next one to really figure out what that means.
You've gotten very good at not giving anything away, but...
I have a little chip implanted in my brain. A little bad robot.
It's a question from Mario in Brazil. Mr. Joshua Jackson, how do you feel? Do you feel a bit alone not having an alternate character for Peter to play?
Well, the PC answer to that is supposed to be, of course, I wish I had the alternate character, but the reality is that when they go into the alternate universe, I get a week off. So I am totally fine. In a room full of actors, I think I can be honest enough to say those 5 days are my happiest days of the month.
Mario also had a question for Mr. John Noble. What are the principal points of support, facial expression, voice, mannerisms that you use to differentiate the characters of Walter and Walternate?
Posture. Walter is slumped. Walternate is a soldier. He's upright. And vocally, Walternate is very clear in his speech, very direct. I should use one of those. Walter is very upright. Walter is stooped. He has the weight of the world on his shoulders. And Walternate is very exact in his speech. He's very soft sometimes, but he's like a laser. Whereas Walter is all over the place and gets stuttery and gets excited and goes fast, and then slow. So there are quite a lot of vocal distinctions that I play with those two characters.
This is kind of a funny question. Martin from Manchester, England, wants to know who makes the most mistakes on set and what was the worst one?
Mistakes?
Yeah. It's kind of...
You know, there really aren't many made. It's true that there's very... Is it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, what's a mistake? Like a blown take? Because there's plenty of those. But isn't that part of the? Aren't we supposed to be doing that? Because you sort of figure, yeah. But it's why you're figuring it out as you go along. I mean, I certainly know that I've made mistakes that I watch the finished product and I go, oh, shouldn't have done that. But I don't know how many of those happen on a day-to-day basis.
They're more just choices, though, aren't they?
Yeah. The things, you see it all cut together, and you made a decision to go do X, and you go, well, if I would have done Y, I think that would have charted a little bit better. But that's just, actors' self-flagellation. I think mistakes are actually a happy part of the process.
The mistakes we don't like, and are not necessarily our responsibility, are continuity mistakes.
Yeah.
And they shock me when I see them, and not too often, but when I see our show, and I see a continuity mistake, I get a really sinking feeling. I really don't like having my suspension of disbelief ruined like that.
Because it takes an audience member, it takes us as a viewer out of the experience and makes you aware of something that turns it back into something you're watching. That's the worst thing that can happen, is because we're already asking so much of the audience to come along on this fantastical story. If we, as a total production, screw up and jar you out of the experience, then we've sort of lost you. And that's the biggest mistake that we make. So there we go. That's our biggest mistake.
We have a lot of questions wanting to know what it's like to work with Gene.
Gene's, you don't want to answer? Gene is adorable. Seriously adorable. But I have to confess, we've had 3 Genes.
Oh.
We had a Gene in Toronto, who was a very cheeky Gene. Gene would be coming over your shoulder, eating your food as you were doing things. And then we had the New York Teamster Gene, who sort of worked by the rules. She was a big girl, wasn't she?
She was a big one, yeah. And only we weren't allowed to bring Gene from Toronto because of Mad Cow.
That's right.
You're not allowed to bring beef to America. So you can kill it and bring it, but you can't bring a live cow across the border, apparently. So if we were going to eat Gene, no problem. But to put Gene in a TV show, not acceptable.
But it was New York Gene that I was allowed to milk, because the producers panicked, last minute rewrite. Oh, Walter's got to milk a cow. Can you milk a cow? And I said, I can. So I did. How about that?
You had that under special skills on the resume?
Well, I've got it on the list now. I'm a cow milker. And the one we got this time, when we first got her in Canada, she'd just had a calf. She was so skinny, poor miserable Jean. She was so slim, but now she's a big girl again, and she pushes me around now. And do you know, these cows are extraordinary because their timing, I don't know how they do this, but they'll be sitting around sort of pooing and carrying on, and then suddenly the cameras will go on and they come with their big brown eyes and go, priceless, you know, absolutely priceless. Their timing is amazing. That's all I want to say.
Well, we have a question from Garrett in Los Angeles. Wants to know, he's an actor, and as an actor, what advice or pointers can you give in regards to nailing the audition to get the role? You both got the role. So.
I was going to defer to you as a teacher.
Okay, well, it's a terribly vexing question. You know, what we try to do sometimes is double guess the producers. We spent a lot of time looking at that 1 or 2 pages of dialogue thinking, I'll find so much subtext in here and I'll find so much backstory that they'll just know I'm great. I think that's a mistake we make. I think we should play the truth that's given to us on the page. That's it. That's all you can do. Make decisions on what information you've got. Because then you will give a truthful performance. And beyond at that point, they will then take you to the next step. But if you go in and overwork a scene, which will bring all sorts of nerves and everything else into it, then you won't get through the next step. That's the main one. Be true to the material you've got and don't try and do any more with it. That's been what I've done when I've auditioned well. And on those occasions, I've walked out feeling very confident. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely, I think. Do you mind if I ask, have you ever had a bad audition? And would you, okay?
I had an audition for a really, really excellent director who I had auditioned for 5 years earlier. I won't say his name because it's actually more embarrassing for me if I tell you who it is. I finished the audition, and he said to me, "You haven't gotten any better. Don't come back."
Oh my God.
So yeah, I've had some bad ones over the course of the last 20 years.
Wow.
I'm sure he meant it in a nice way.
I don't see how that reflects worse on you than him.
Well, I mean, it makes him an asshole, but you know, you want to be well respected by good people. But yeah, I mean, the auditioning process is awful. And then I've had great ones. I just got a job. I'm starting a new job on Monday, working for Stephen Frears, which is amazing.
It's fantastic.
Thank you. So I'm extremely excited. And, you know, go in and do an audition and walk out of it like, yeah, that was pretty good. And they call back like, hey, we'll see you on Monday. So who knows how they go sometimes.
Is this a film? Can you tell us about it?
It's called Lay the Favorite. Rebecca Hall is the leading lady. And, yeah, who's amazing. So I'm playing her leading man. And the supporting cast, if you can believe it, is Bruce Willis and Catherine Zeta-Jones. So that's
fantastic.
All right. Yeah, so that's good. So I'll call the other guy back now and see.
Oh, we have a lot of questions, and this one's from Danielle, wanting to know if Peter's ever going to confront Walter about the kidnapping and know the reason why he did it. I know this might not be up to you guys, but so many people asked it.
I'm not quite sure what you mean, because I'm pretty sure he did.
Yeah, we've covered that.
Does he know the reason?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. He didn't find it compelling, but but I mean, there was still one of my favorite scenes that we've done, like, because there is a tendency for people to, and we have a tendency to want to go maybe too far, but there's a tendency for the sort of executive, directorial, producerial suite to want to make sure that we don't fight too much, which I don't really think is honest between a father and a son.
No, that's right.
Right? And so they keep on trying to pull us back, and sometimes it's ugly between a father and a son, and there's so much bad business between these two guys that it is only natural that sometimes it gets bad. And that scene where it's at the end of last season, and I'm in a hospital bed again, but in the interim between getting knocked out and waking up, I put the pieces together, and it's mean. I'm mean to you. It's cold and nasty as can be, and I love that scene. I think it's great. So I think she might have missed that one.
Actually, quite a few people asked it. I think they just really want to see more of you, too. I think that's what it comes
totally
down
fine
to.
We're happy with that.
Chloe from Florida wants to know if you guys are fans of sci-fi in general, and if so, what shows you enjoy.
Is it specific, current, or?
I think, yeah. What a strange email address.
Yep, that's strange.
Yeah, I think it could be anything.
I would definitely say that I'm a fan of sci-fi, and I think from being a sort of gawky preteen, reading Piers Anthony all the way through, the well, the thing that sci-fi presents. I mean, it's funny. I was walking through Venice the other day, and I actually literally remember the first where I read The Lord of the Rings for the first time. I was in my brother's apartment, and we were passing it by. So that place that you could go. And I'm sure for young women as well, but as a young man, that you could escape into these books and later into television shows and films. And then as I got a little bit older, into X-Files and just devoured that show. So I'm a big sci-fi fan, yeah.
John, have you ever heard of Lord of the Rings?
Had after I was cast in it. It's true, I hadn't read the books. It's a terrible confession, isn't it?
Scandal! We're going to talk for an hour and a half today, and the one thing that's going to go out into the world from this, John Lovell admits.
I've already confessed it.
Oh, really?
And what's more, a few of the other actors confessed it as well.
Really?
Yes. After we won
That just
10 Academy Awards,
Yeah.
we didn't care. Next.
I actually want to talk to you guys about playing a long-running character. You obviously did it before with 6 seasons, but is it difficult to keep the character fresh and exciting over a long period of time?
Yeah. Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, that's what we were talking about a little bit earlier, saying because this is so rare, I think we will deal with less of the pitfalls, but they're still there. You get tired. Writers get tired. Some scripts are better than other scripts. Some days it's raining outside. Some days you just don't want to get up and go to work. So there are all those real life things that happen off camera that can make it. And then, you know, the worst thing that can happen is that the character stalls somewhere, that the relationships, the dynamics. We certainly, pardon me, felt this on Dawson's after, you know, once those kids graduated from high school, we really had to struggle to figure out a way for them to be in each other's lives, and then those characters are stuck. And now you're just sort of playing the same beats over and over again. And thankfully, that cast really enjoyed working with each other, so you know, you found the joy in the individual scenes, but you didn't really feel like the thing was moving and growing anywhere. So yeah, absolutely, it's tough to keep it growing.
You've been so fortunate to be a part of, is this from Coachella? So
I don't know, probably. I'm not 22 years old anymore, and a weekend at Coachella takes its toll.
You've been very fortunate to be a part of 2 great ensemble shows, and I do think that Fringe has one of the best ensembles on television. What is it like to work with those people day in and day out?
Well, once you get past the difficulties of mounting a show, in the beginning it's just pure panic, and our show was total, complete chaos in the very beginning. And once it starts to get up on its feet, and then the show becomes what it's going to be. So everybody has it, or I guess the writers have their idea of it, everybody has their idea of what it's supposed to be, and then it kind of informs you once you start making it. What parts work best, what parts don't work quite as well. And once it becomes that thing, then I think the actors, that's when our turn comes. Because then you have the most time and ability to, if you enjoy working with those people, really trying to keep the dynamic between the two of you vibrant. Mm-hmm. And so I think we're getting into that portion of the show now where, I mean, we've always had it because we were forced to, but I feel like if our company of actors wants to stay engaged, the next step for all of us is sort of chewing on each one of those individual scenes now that we've sort of discovered what Fringe is.
John, aside from Joshua, who are some of your other favorite people to play scenes with? Because we have a lot of questions about Walter and Nina. I just want you to know.
I love playing scenes with Asteroid, Aspirin, Asterix, Afro. But so does Josh. We have this thing we call ourselves the bishops, and we get this punch every time we do a scene. she's amazing. She's the sweetest possible thing, and we call her the littlest bishop. And so playing scenes with her is just heaven.
Remember that scene in the first season over the ear? This is still one of my favorite favorite sort of moments on set. There was some, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's this episode in the first season. Somebody's ear, Walter regrew it in a petri dish and then cooked it into an omelet.
Nice. As I do.
As you do, right? And we got into an argument over the two of it, sort of back and forth, and it wasn't written into the script. And there's not a ton of ad-libbing that happens on set, but at some point, Astrid had to sort of jump into the middle of this scene, and we just jumped on her, just screaming across, what do you want? We're in the middle of it.
Exactly in unison, though.
Yeah. As the bishops do, and the look on her face, I think that was the moment that my heart melted for.
She was sharp.
What? Why are they yelling at me? I'm just trying to play the scene. She's wonderful. She's a great, and it is because, not so much this year, I was very jealous because I lost a lot of the time that I was outside of the lab. You guys were still working together, but for the first 2 years particularly, the three of us really had spent most of our time together, puddling around in that space, trying to figure it out and working together, which is a ton of fun.
I've had an opportunity, particularly this year, to do a lot of close work with Anna because of the work that she's done as Belle, and and also as Bolivia, and have found a really strong working relationship with. In the first, I don't think we actually found our ensemble in the first year, to be honest with you. I think we were all just sort of going through and surviving as best we could, and we began to find our ensemble probably halfway through the second season, where we started to understand and respect the values and respect the boundaries of each other. And since then, it's been a really fine ensemble of people to work with. You know, you do a scene, say, with Lance Reddick, who's such a serious actor, I mean, intensely serious. But, by gee, he gives you so much when you do it. You know, it's don't dare be distracted when you're working with Lance. He's fearful. And so back to Nina. You know, Blair Brown is sort of around about my vintage, and she's also like me in the sense she's got a long stage history. So we have a lingo. She said to me at the first ever read-through, she said, I think our characters should get together. You didn't know this because you weren't there. You were 5 days late. And she still, and so every opportunity we get now, it's not in the script, we always hold hands or something, or there's a little something like that between us. We're building it up and building it up. God knows what we'll do when we get there. I don't know that Walter would be up for much. I think he'd have to mix himself a few special drugs to get through it. And Nina would have to take a hand off. Or not.
Or not.
Oh, my goodness me. I'll have to start concocting something. I love her.
That one on Cinemax.
She's a brilliant actress and a brilliant asset to have in the company, and I hope she'll direct with us as well. I think she might.
What would you like to see happen for your characters in the next season?
Well, one of the things that we want is the reunion of the bishops, but at a mature level, which I think we've established at the end, so that basically, so Josh and I can have more fun together, because you do have a lot of fun together. So we want to do more scenes together, and that seems like it's quite possible now for us. That would. Oh,
do you need to say that?
Probably should have turned that off.
Somebody. I know actors that don't turn their cell phones off on set. Can you imagine that?
It has happened on occasion, but I'm hardly the only one who has had this unfortunate moment.
It's not me. It's just about everyone else. Never did happen to me. Oh, God, I'm gone now.
So you'd like to see Walter and Peter share more scenes in season 4?
I'm not sure now. I don't know. There's so many places they can go. There's this incredibly deep well of love between these 5 principal characters, and I'm excluding Lance from that to some degree because he keeps Royals outside. But the other characters have such a deep well of love that anything could happen. They're the sort of people that would give up their life for each other. And so that, as a foundation for relationships going forward, is very rich and something that opens so many story doors.
What about for you?
Well, I think a lot is going to have to be decided this off-season what direction they want to take the show in, because the place that we end at the end of this year
Teasing us again.
gives us, it gives us the opportunity for a radical departure from the storytelling that has come up to here. And this is Fringe, so that's not saying nothing, because last year we introduced another dimension, and I think the way that we end this year is actually even more potentially. I mean, it depends on what vein they want to pursue from this. So it's hard for me to say, depending on what they think the outcome or the result of this thing that I can't tell you is that happens in a couple weeks. I'm not sure where Peter falls into the mix after that. So I'm going to have to reserve judgment.
Now, we know what you're doing on your hiatus. You're making a movie with Stephen Frears. John, do you have any plans?
Yes, I'm going. I really want to go home to Australia for a while. I haven't been back for a long time, and I want to re-establish my roots, literally, because it's so long since I've been there. Go back and spend some time with my children and family, and that's what I'm going to do. Going tomorrow.
Well, congratulations on a great show. Thank you so much for your time and for being here.
Thank you.